Welcome to the Level Up Show with Nick Lopez. Today I have the pleasure of talking with Matt Wallace from Dry Bones. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate the invitation.
So would you share a little bit about Dry Bones as an organization and how you guys are impacting the youth here in Denver?
Sure, I'd love to. So Dry Bones is here in Denver, Colorado, and we are in our 20th year of operating as a nonprofit organization. And we serve a unique population of young people that are experiencing homelessness in the city of Denver. And so when we first showed up onto the scene, noticing all these young people, really young kids back in 2001, we just were paying attention to this unique population and started asking the question, what is ours to do? What are we supposed to be doing? So my wife and I founded Dry Bones with another couple, Jeff and Kama Metters, in November of 2001. And our families, we lived together for a while. That's a longer story, but living together in the same house and then starting to hang out on the streets with these young people, the question of what is ours to do was our constant question, paying attention. What is Urban Peak, and what does Urban Peak do in the city? Well, they're a great organization that has GED classes, and they have an overnight shelter. And that would give us the answer to part of that question. Okay, so we're not supposed to start a shelter. We're not supposed to start a GED program. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's support other organizations and agencies that may be serving this population, but let's figure out what ours is to do. And so to make a really long story short, we started getting to know, they call themselves street kids. It's a label that I don't always use, but it's a label that young people on the streets across the United States will use. So occasionally you'll hear me say street kids. We started hanging out with these street kids and just creating environments of belonging. So we rented out a pool hall. That's how we started. We rented out a pool hall downtown and we said, hey, come one, come all. We've got 2 hours in this pool hall. We have the whole place to ourselves. Let's shoot pool and just get to know each other and build relationships. And before we knew it, we realized that that was the biggest missing component on the streets and in the lives of these young people, was just a sense of family connectedness and human connectedness. There were great social services agencies that would provide case management, again, GED programs, some medical help as needed, but everything was very pristine, sort of clinical social work environment. And there were not environments for these young people to have people their age, but also adults in their life that are supportive. And so I don't know what your life was like growing up, Nick, but I had a loving mom and dad that provided clothes for me and told me to get my butt to school on time and taught me how to brush my teeth in the morning and do my homework first thing when I got home. And so what we were seeing is so many of these young people on the streets did not have loving, supportive family a part of their story and a part of their lives. And so that's how Dry Bones evolved in those early days, was just constantly looking for new ways to build relationships and human connectedness with young people living on the streets. Part of our mission statement is we practice the ways of Jesus. And so we are a Christian-based ministry, but one of the things that's real obvious hanging out with my friends on the streets is they're like any of the rest of us. They don't like to be preached at. And so we never preach at kids on the streets or yell at them or shove anything down their throat, as they would like to put it, which has been some of their experience with Christian people on the streets. And so we also realized that part of our mission was to redefine Christianity, redefine spirituality and a faith and what a life feels like and looks like following Christ. And so everything that we design, everything that we do is based in and comes from the source of our faith. But as much as anything, creating spiritual environments of connectedness, creating those physical and emotional environments of connectedness proved to be just super needed on the streets. And so the city of Denver is required by HUD to count its population experiencing homelessness once a year. And they try to do that on one day in January, according to HUD recommendations and rules. And it tends to be one of the coldest days of the year. And so whenever people ask me, so what's the population of homelessness look like in Denver, especially these young people you're talking about? It's really impossible for me to answer that question because I don't tend to trust the numbers. We've had point in time surveys, that's what these are called, early on that showed us there were 13,000 people experiencing homelessness in the Denver metro area. More recently, those numbers, the counts come closer to 3,000, 4,000. We've had numbers 6,000, 7,000. So it's all over the map. But young people, more than anyone else, don't want to be counted. They don't want to give you their name, their social security number, their information that is often required in those point in time studies. So what I can do is I can tell you anecdotally what we see. We're serving a population of around 800 to 1,200 young people experiencing homelessness over the course of any given year. And 800 to 1,200 young people is more than our small organization can do as far as that deep human connectedness and sense of belonging. And so what we find is over 12 months, about 100 to 120 young people will really send their roots deep into relationship with us. And so we do our best work with smaller groups. We do a lot of family style meals here at our headquarters at our office, which is at 16th and Downing, where we pass the green beans and we pass the mashed potatoes with 10 street kids and a few staff members and a few volunteers at a time. We do have a couple of open houses, especially pre-pandemic. We're kind of slowly getting back into having our space open to larger groups, but we're being very cautious with COVID and everything going on with that. But we'll have gatherings where we may have 30, 40 street kids come up to our space where they can take a shower, they can sit on a couch, hang out with us, build relationships with people really whose paths they have no business crossing. And so when our volunteers, staff, and young people experiencing homelessness all get in the same room, the magic just starts happening and relationships start building. And so we try to do that on a small scale and by design and by intention, so that those relationships, life transforming relationships, can happen. The young people that we serve, we say is 12 to 30-year-olds. Back in 2001, 2002, when we first started, we saw a lot of 11, 12, 13-year-olds on the streets. And the culture has shifted, and I'm grateful for this, in a way that we do not see 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds on the streets by themselves anymore here in 2021. We occasionally will see a 13, 14-year-old, but for the most part, the police and the social services systems are picking those kids up off the streets as quickly as possible. Whereas back in the early 2000s, 11, 12, 13-year-olds were very common to see all over the city, and the systems were not picking them up as much. All that to say, the average age of young people that are in the dry bones community tend to be in their late teens to mid 20s. And so about 30 is the age that we stop inviting new young people into the dry bones community. As adults become and go into their 30s and 40s, there tend to be some other services that they can take hold of. And we try to work really hard to keep our population and the community we're building young. But having said that, another part of our mission is the word long-term relationships. And so I was on the phone this morning. I did a video meeting with a friend of mine that's in Adams County Jail right now. And he's 32 years old, but I've known him since he was 11 years old on the streets. And I've been, Dry Bones has been a consistent familial support in his life for the past 20 years. And so, yeah, he's 31 now. So I met him when he was 11. He's 31 now. He's like a little brother to me in so many ways. And so you don't graduate or get kicked out of the dry bones community, but you kind of get the idea that we're hanging out with late teens and 20 somethings and building a sense of community and belonging around that population. We also are able to provide therapy. We have a couple of therapists that volunteer their time with us to do more intensive sessions with young people. We have life formation coaches on our staff that are a step kind of lighter and below therapy, where it's just like, let's navigate life together. Let's set some goals and let's talk about what it might look like and feel like to reach those goals. What's the first step you need to take? And do you believe that you can reach these goals? And so doing sessions with life formation coaches has been pretty profound and incredible. And then we also just provide a lot of basic life support for young people on the streets, whether it's sleeping bags and tents and blankets and coats, or a shower. We have laundry facilities here at our offices. or again, those hot home cooked meals. Kind of the centerpiece of our week is an outdoor meal that we serve on Thursday nights, and it's come one, come all, and we have different volunteers on a rotating schedule that bring a hot home cooked meal. And as someone, it's the only line that we do is that Thursday night meal. But as someone comes down the line, they're asked lots of questions. Do you like salad? Yeah, you want salad. And then we're given choices. Do you want Italian dressing or ranch dressing? And we've found that through eye contact, intentionality of asking, do you like this or do you not like this? Well, I'm not going to put this on your plate. And then giving choices, this type of dressing or that type of dressing. It speaks a nonverbal message of dignity, that it's not just here's your tray with your slop ghoul or gunk next, here's your tray with yours next. But there's this, hey, I see you as an individual, and I know that you are walking through life as an individual. And so I'm going to treat you as an individual at this, even in this line of this meal we're doing right now. And so a lot of the things that we design in the Dry Bones world and building community is done with trying to give a voice to the stories of young people that are living life on the streets, but also to see their humanity and their individuality. And then finally and ultimately to see them as a young person created in the image of God and treat them as such. And so that's a quick spiel about what Dry Bones is and kind of who we're serving. And I know you probably have questions around that, Nick. So I'll stop talking
Yeah.
for a second.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Yeah, good lay of the land. I was on your website and taking a look at some of the information that you have on there, which is all really awesome FAQs and mission statements and a lot of good detail around specifically how you work with the youth. One of the things I came across was that Denver is viewed and kind of has a reputation across the country of being a place. If you're someone that's younger, why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So about 60% of the young people that we're meeting on the streets and have been meeting for the last 20 years are from the Colorado area. And so they may be from the Western Slope, and they know that when they leave home, they're running away from abuse or they're running away from dire situations, they know to go to the big city. So we do get a lot of Coloradans from all over the state. But the other 40% of young people are traveling kids. And these are kids that, as much as I hate to use the term lost for lots of different reasons, they're kind of wandering, trying to find themselves and trying to find their place in this world all across the country. And so there are several cities in the United States that have kind of a known reputation across the country in the street kid underground world of, hey, this is a city where you'll find other people in the same boat as you. There are other people like us if you go to Denver. There are other people like us if you go to Seattle and Portland and San Francisco and Los Angeles. Those are other cities that our friends travel to and from pretty regularly. Austin, Texas is another one. Tempe, Arizona, for some reason. And then, of course, New York City. And there are other cities, but they develop these reputations of these kids that are wandering around the country. And you can hear it from other kids to say, you really should go check out the scene in Seattle or Portland. And so I think that kids also know that if they just keep moving, if they can keep moving, their troubles can't catch up to them. There's this idea that that's true, and that's not true. Denver also being the gateway to the West, we're the largest city in the center of the country. And so if someone is hopping a train, which a lot of our friends do, or they're hitchhiking, or they're taking a Greyhound bus, they will have a break in Denver. They'll stop in Denver and they'll get off the Greyhound bus and they'll wander through the city. And not only, it's pretty obvious that Denver is a beautiful city and we have lots of tourism and people want to be a part of this city and want to come and see this city. The same is true of teens and young adults experiencing homelessness. They see a beautiful city, but they also find other young people that are in the same boat as them. And they go, I wonder if I belong here. And so we have kids that will stay in Denver for a week or two. We have kids that think they're going to stay in Denver for a week or two and end up getting stuck here. Life just never kind of moves on to San Francisco like they thought it was going to. And they end up spending a couple of years here. And so I think it's important to obviously say that so many young people that are experiencing homelessness end up choosing to leave the streets. End up going, I don't have to live this wandering lifestyle the rest of my life. I don't have to sleep under a bridge or in a tent along the street the rest of my life. And that's one thing that I think makes the young population very unique to me, is they are on the streets. And I think a lot of people might use the term they're hopeless on the streets, and I don't see that. I see young people on days they might be in deep despair and hopelessness, but in general, they're filled with hope. They're bright eyed, just like every other 18-year-old you meet out there, and they think the world is theirs to conquer, and they can become what they want to become. They don't have to be in this situation forever. So we see a lot of hopefulness among the young population, and we get to see lots of kids leave the street life, conquer addictions, sometimes when it's appropriate, return to family, be reunited with family, and that's a super big goal of ours. If they have safe family to be connected with, that's what all of us want. And so we get to see a lot of that happen. I think that's important to point out as I'm talking about some of the despair and wandering and the sense of feeling lost in this world. There's also a lot to celebrate.
Mm. Yeah, and I mean, I think that is a big reality. The fact that homeless people need help, that don't have family or mentors or a guiding voice, and even just a voice to hear them, right? And clearly, I'm speaking to the choir here, but you mentioned something earlier, and I'm curious. You'd said, um, that hearing them specifically based on something even just as simple as a meal,
Mhm.
has like a sense of dignity. Do you feel like that is something that is pretty common across the board? Is that these young homeless friends, as you call them, right? The street kids. Um, they is dignity something that they struggle to find or feel like they have in their life?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we have three pillars around here. One is you are unconditionally loved, and we try to practice that. And it's 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 a trite statement to say, and it's a really hard thing to practice. But practicing unconditional love. Another pillar is you have unsurpassable worth and value. And that word unsurpassable is not a common word that you hear all the time in everyday conversation, but like you are, if you see someone and the judgment we pass on our friends is worth and value instead of get off my lawn, you're worthless, you'll never amount to anything, you're an addict, you're this, all the labels. But the label we give and the way that we try to, the eyes we're trying to see with is you have unsurpassable worth and value. And the third pillar is you belong. And I think that's what any of us are looking for in this world is where do we belong? Where's my tribe? Who are my people that I can live life with, that are going to have my back and support me in a positive legal way? Who's going to have my back in life? And that sense of belonging is something that we're all looking for, but it's just so obvious and evident among my friends on the streets that there is this deep need to know, where do I belong in this world? Because everywhere else has told me, every turn I take, everywhere I look, I'm receiving the nonverbal messages of you're worthless, you don't belong here, you don't belong there, your parents didn't want you, the systems don't want you, the city doesn't want you. There's just constant messages that just tear my friends apart bit by bit by bit, piece by piece. And so if we could place those pieces back, we often refer to as repairing the torn and broken aspects of the fabric of life. And
Mm.
so it's slow work, it's intentional work, and it's very needed work. And so if you can picture a big piece of fabric with a little tear in it, and you go, I can pay attention to this tear right here. There may be a gash over there and more tears over here and more tears over there in the fabric of life, but I can pay attention right now to this little tear. And slowly you get your needle and thread and you just slowly start uh, sewing that one little spot right there on the fabric of life. Then you go home at night and you go, what a successful day. What a beautiful day. And we can do that through a home cooked meal. You can do that through a family meal where we sit around. We have this beautiful dining table just around the corner here from where I'm sitting that a volunteer of ours made for us. He went to the scrapyard and he picked up all these pieces of discarded metal. So tire, like brake rotors and gears from bicycles and motorcycles. And he built this table, and then he got an old railroad train car, the wood floor from an old railroad train car, and he sanded it and he painted it, or he stained it, and he built this beautiful table that we can seat 16 people around, sitting around looking each other in the eye, asking questions about life. They don't have to be like, let's have therapy now over the mashed potatoes, but like, what kind of music do you listen to? Why is that music important to you? What's your favorite lyric from that song? You know, you're just having normal friendship conversations. It's like sewing that rip in that fabric of life. And we all leave healed and better people. And that's a very key component of the Dry Bones community is our volunteers and our staff cannot have this attitude of, I'm just here to load up all of life's answers on my back. I'm just here to load up all of my knowledge of who God is and spirituality on my back. And I'm going to take it down to the poor street kids of Denver and I'm going to dump it out and give it to them. Instead, the attitude has to be friendship, real relationship is a two-way street. And so we practice that regularly over the meal. Like I leave after a family meal feeling better about the world and about life. And my view of who God is and what the world is like has been flipped upside down and changed in so many ways because of my friends that have nothing and that sleep out by the Platte River or sleep in a tent, even when it's snowy and cold at night. They have changed my life so much. And that's the environment we want around here, is this expectation that all of our lives are about to be changed through unlikely relationships and friendships. And so dignity and giving dignity is something that happens mutually in both directions. Respect is shared. There's an environment and a culture that we build of respecting each other and sharing dignity with each other that's just simply life-changing. And then eventually we get down to the big gashes in the fabric and we go, all right, we're going to need to reach out to MHCD and get you a case manager over there because you've got some mental illness that needs to be paid attention to. You deserve to pay attention to that. We also have a psychiatrist that volunteers with us and is available for any young person that we want to do an assessment. He'll spend 6 hours with them doing an assessment with them to really dig in and say what's going on mentally that we can pay attention to and start healing. And eventually those gashes become scars, but they become healed in a way that life can move forward and move on. But it all starts with like a simple hot home cooked meal. And I know that maybe your listeners will feel like I'm oversimplifying it, but it's not. It's that simple. Do you have the basic things you need? Food, water, air? Are you breathing right now? Are you safe? Are you secure? Are you spiritually safe right now? As far as like knowing that I'm not going to preach and yell at you and add a spiritual abuse component to your life. And once our friends start to realize I have food, I have water, I have air that's safe to breathe, and I'm among safe people, and once I feel that too, in the sense of community, then everything just starts changing. And we also have some really rough stories of life not turning out the way that we wished it would. And every one of us have those stories too. So it's not all rainbows and butterflies around here, that's for sure. So I don't want to make it sound that way.
Yeah, but I think you're speaking to the core of what's so powerful, which is life on life.
Yeah.
Right. And one of those very basic things that people need is community and to be seen.
Yeah.
And to not be a label. And man, just such powerful work that you're doing. And I just believe in what you do so much. And yeah, brother, I just yeah, I can see that you have a calling and a blessing, and uh, I'm here right behind you. So I was curious. You have speaking to life on life, right? You have a coffee store, right? And you give some hands-on training. And can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we run a social enterprise here through the Dry Bones organization called Purple Door Coffee. we started Purple Door Coffee as a brick and mortar coffee shop in Five Points here in Denver. And we had that coffee shop open for about 5.5 years. And in the midst of running the coffee shop, we opened a roasting facility where we were roasting our coffee. And that warehouse is located in Inglewood, right along the Oxford light rail station there. And so it's a 12-month job training program for young people that are coming off the streets. And what we found was that so many of our friends could land a job at McDonald's, but they were having a tremendously hard time holding that job at McDonald's. And so they'd land the job at McDonald's, or they'd land the job, at a warehouse and keep it for a week or two. And we kept questioning and trying to get to the bottom of what's going on here. And what we found was that some of the simple, soft job skills were missing. So we tried several different methods of teaching job training, from getting employers to hire our friends with the expectation that they're going to need a lot of mentorship and hand-holding. And that tended to not ever work out, because the business owners would go, these kids need a lot more attention than I'm able to give them. And I've got other employees that need attention too, but not as much as these young people. And so after striking out with a bunch of ideas and methods, we eventually said we need to start our own business. Let's start our own social enterprise and our own job training program that, through the trust and relationship that's built in the Dry Bones community, we can hand over to this job training program that trust, and kids will take hold of an opportunity that they may not have otherwise taken hold of. They would have been intimidated or scared to take hold of a job, working 20 to 30 hours a week, straight off the streets. And I tell you, in 20 years of hanging out with this community, I've never seen anything that's been more life-changing than Purple Door Coffee. And the way that lives are changed in 12 months through this job training program. So a couple of years ago, we closed the brick and mortar coffee shop. Not only was it becoming just increasingly expensive with rent and lease to compete downtown, but we found that the roasting facility was actually our best first step job training opportunity. A little more behind the scenes, not so out front. Some of our employees did awesome with customer service and working eye to eye with the customers coming in, but others were very intimidated coming straight from the streets into an environment where they're doing face-to-face service. So we put all of our eggs into the roasting basket. And the way that social enterprise is supported is a couple of ways. One, we do coffee service for churches and offices. That's our bread and butter. That's how we make most of our revenue, enables us to support the social enterprise. And so if your church has a coffee bar on Sunday morning that you're serving cheap Costco coffee or Folgers coffee, I'd invite you to try Purple Door Coffee, because not only is it a much higher quality of coffee, but it's also going to be ethically sourced. We make sure that from the soil all the way to the employment and job training program, there's ethics involved, and the farmers are being paid what they deserve to be paid so that they can support their families in Ethiopia or Colombia or Peru, wherever they are, and that our young people are able to start getting on their feet on their own. And so, yeah, it's excellent coffee, and it will cost a little bit more than it will cost more than Folgers, but we have about 50 churches now throughout the United States that are serving Purple Door Coffee on Sunday mornings, and then offices as well that have coffee space. We love, and then other coffee shops. We have 3 coffee shops right now that are serving our coffee as their primary bean. And then we do home subscriptions as well. So you can go to purpledoorcoffee.com. You can order 1 bag, or you can get on a subscription where we send it to you bi-monthly. You can get 5 pounds a month if that's how much you want to drink, or you can get 1 bag a month. But yeah, supporting our job training program is truly life-changing. It's just, and you guys know what it's like to work side by side with others, but when you're shoulder to shoulder on a team accomplishing a mission, you share life with each other when you're working side by side. So if it's somebody painting a house with others, they're accomplishing that together. And that's the sense that our friends get when they work at Purple Door for 12 months, is they are working side by side, not just with each other, but with our staff at Purple Door. And so there's something pretty beautiful that happens when you spend 20 hours a week next to someone who's really pouring a lot into your life and mentoring you. And so we've seen kids graduate, and we have a pretty high success rate. Around 80% of our young people maintain their jobs for the first year after graduating from Purple Door. And it's always shocking. We'll start a new kid at Purple Door, and I'll go, I don't know if this kid's going to make it or not. And next thing you know, 12 months have flown by, and we're celebrating their graduation and eating pizza and kind of pouring blessings on them as we send them on to their next job. And then we have other kids that aren't quite ready for Purple Door, and they last a month, and they end up back on the streets, and we try it again a year down the road. So yeah, thanks for
Sure.
asking about Purple Door.
Yeah.
We're real.
Yeah, it's definitely a really neat way to do life on life, right? You just shared, through this whole conversation, how important it is to see somebody and to impact their life. There's no way to do that than to just be there shoulder to shoulder.
That's right.
So Purple Door, what a really neat organization. I definitely want to support it, and we'll have to talk more about that. Talk more about a lot of other ways to support Dry Bones. But when as you're talking, I can't help but think, how do you scale life on life, right? I'm sure, you being the founder of Dry Bones, that's where you spend probably a lot of your time. You know how important a team is, and you all are working behind the Dry Bones mission. And what a unique and neat calling to come together as a team. Yeah, just more and more excited as we talk. But when it comes to scaling life on life, how is that best accomplished? How have you found that? What is the winning formula for you guys at Dry Bones?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we use I've already talked about relationship and being an intentional long-term relationship, but another word we use around here is a strange word, companioning. What we do here at Dry Bones is companioning. We say it's our vital work is companioning. That's also not a word you use in everyday conversation, and I can give you a whole speech sometime. And if you come to a volunteer training, we'll talk about the essence and quality of companioning and what we mean by that. But when you're trying to create companionship among people, the only way to do that is through people. Like, you can't do that through systems. You can't systematize companionship and relationship. The way that those happen typically happen naturally, but the way we grow and the way we grow our impact on this population of young people experiencing homelessness here in Denver is by growing more people. We have to have more people involved. It's been a really tough 18 months because of COVID for everyone in the world. And we, like the rest of you, have struggled with, what do we do? Like, well, how do we interact, in this environment? We don't want to get our volunteers sick. And by all means, we don't want to get vulnerable people sleeping in tents sick with COVID. And so we have, for the last year, put most of our volunteers on furlough, and that has been painful. I mean, that has been so painful because we're not having these indoor gatherings of 40 kids at a time or even 20 kids at a time plus volunteers. We're missing a lot of those relationships. But as life rolls on, I mean, I want to say we see the winds of change and things coming back to normal. The vaccine certainly helps, and we're trying to get a lot of our friends on the streets vaccinated. A lot of our volunteers are vaccinated, to the point that we now are feeling more and more comfortable getting back in a room with each other, especially for those that we know are safe and vaccinated, and wearing masks and all that good stuff. But we have not had a Dry Bones 101. That's our volunteer orientation in the last 18 months. And we now have one on the schedule for November 6th. So if people want to become part of this community, they want to get to know us more and hear more of the ways to get involved, you can go to our website, drybonesdenver.org, and click on Get Involved. And it's called Dry Bones 101. That's where you can sign up for that. But that's November 6th. And we will be slowly looking for more and more ways for humans to cross paths with each other. We call these intersections, where people that are housed and people that are unhoused get in the same space with each other. So right now, our volunteers and our community of young people experiencing homelessness. We're getting together in parks and outside mostly because the weather's beautiful right now. And as the sun starts setting earlier and it gets colder, we're going to be assessing how do we continue this, because that's how we grow our mission. That's how we have greater impact, is more people. So we grow our staff, we grow our volunteer base. That's how this thing becomes more impactful, and that's how we scale that sense of companionship and relationship and impact.
Yeah. And volunteers, I'm sure, are a big part of that, right? The community coming and being a part. And as you shared, you can go right onto Dry Bones website, click get involved, and then Dry Bones 101, that'll start getting you more up to par with volunteering and getting involved.
Yeah, that's right. So the Dry Bones 101, what I'll say about that is it's a great day, whether or not you decide that you're going to volunteer with us long term. We designed the Dry Bones 101 experience. It starts at about 9:30 in the morning and it goes till 3 in the afternoon. So it's kind of an all day Saturday experience, but we've designed it to be inspiring. And so you'll come, you'll get an education about young people experiencing homelessness and what that's like. But we also spend 2.5 hours outdoors walking a path that we've kind of lined out where we let the city tell us some stories. It's not just all me talking, but the city's going to tell us some stories. We'll stop under a bridge. We'll look at bridge design and say, what does this bridge engineering design say about humans and about people? And we'll just stop along the way and have conversations. So it's a really good experience for anybody that just wants to have that experience. And at the end of the day, we ask the people that have attended, so are you interested in taking a step closer to this community? And if you say yes, then we do require an application, and we have to do background checks because of the vulnerable population that we're serving and requirements of our liability insurance and all. So we do background checks, we check references to make sure that you are a safe person that we're inviting into this community to the best of our ability. And then from there, there's opportunities to start hanging out, passing the green beans and the mashed potatoes, bringing a meal, cooking a meal, and helping serve that. We say that you're totally qualified to volunteer with Dry Bones if you can do this. Breathe in, breathe out. There, you got it. You're a human. You have a personality. You have your own experience in this world. Come bring that chemistry and put it into the big pot, and let's see what happens. But we do want to make sure that we are inviting people that are safe to invite into the community. So application and background checks and references are required if you take that next step beyond Dry Bones 101.
Yeah. And just for anyone that's listening, myself included, I'm curious, how can somebody support Dry Bones and what you're doing if they don't have the time or the resources to physically come and do life on life? What about like providing some clothing?
Sure. So we try to keep our website. We're actually in the process of trying to build a new website right now, which is a slow process. But we're doing we're doing the rest of the website in-house, and so it's even slower than ever. But we keep a list updated on what our current needs are. And so as we head towards the winter, which we'll be heading there rapidly, I know how this works around here. We need sleeping bags. We need coats. We need school-sized backpacks and large backpacks. Those are the types of things we almost always need. But then our storage is limited, and so there may come a time where we've got too much clothes, so we'll take that off our website and say we don't need any clothes right now. We don't need bars of soap right now. We've got plenty of toothpaste, so don't donate to. So we keep that list updated, but there's always items that we need, and we hand out and we share it with our friends on the streets. And then, of course, I wouldn't be a good executive director of a nonprofit if I didn't mention that we rely on the donations, the financial gifts of the public. And Dry Bones is mostly funded by families and individuals and churches that give $25 a month, $100 a month, $200 a month. And so that's a real practical way that you can support this organization, is through your financial gifts. I know, Nick, that you guys are doing a golf tournament for us coming up on October 2nd. I don't know if that's an open invitation way to support Dry Bones, but we're grateful for things like that, creative ways that people will do fundraisers for us. We have a couple of businesses, Boone Mountain Sports up in Evergreen and Sweet Bloom Coffee here in the Denver and Westminster area. They're doing a donation drive to try to get a bunch of sleeping bags and coats as we head into the fall. Things like that are always really helpful. We also have a fundraising dinner that's going to happen on October 23rd. We're going to celebrate our 20th birthday together. It's at the Tivoli downtown. You'll be able to find information about that on our website too. But October 23rd, it's our annual fundraising gala. And we try to make that super inclusive. We invite friends of ours that are currently homeless or that have been a part of the Dry Bones community for a long time to be included in that, even if they can't afford to buy the $75 ticket themselves. We want it to be an inclusive party that celebrates Dry Bones, and so it's a lot of fun. It's not your average typical nonprofit fundraiser, is the way I'll say it. We try to let you leave inspired and having had one of those experiences where we all get in the same room and really cool stuff happens. So that's coming up, but and then we just appreciate, spiritual support as well. So we're grateful for people that ask questions about what's going on in our city and start trying to practice the judgment of when you see someone on a street corner, instead of going, man, they're dirty or they look high right now, or I wish that they wouldn't camp right here on this part of the street or whatever. Start passing that judgment of, all right, let me try this. They have unsurpassable worth and value. They belong on this earth. They're here. They're part of my community. They are one of my neighbors. This city exists for them as it exists for me. And then see where that leads you and how that leads you to interact or act and walk through the rest of your day. And hopefully that causes you to throw out a blessing or a prayer for that person that you see on the street corner as you see them as someone created in the image of God. So,
yeah, well said. And what a small tweak there. It'll make such a big difference mentally.
Yeah.
I know as you're pulling up to a stop light or, for us in Denver, walking down 16th Street Mall, driving past the Denver Rescue Mission. I know personally I have labels and thoughts, and just one perspective changed at a time. And thanks for helping change my perspective today, because now going forward I'll pass that message and I'll have that message of putting the right labels on fellow humans that
and it's a mutual problem. I mean, I'll tell you, my friends on the streets have been mistreated by passersby. They've been yelled at. They've been told to get an effing job. They've been told to do this or that, And so I have the same challenge for them as I do for myself and for those of you that are housed and employed and driving by in your car. I talk to my friends all the time about this. Like, hey, what if you saw that person as being created in the image of God? They're not a yuppie. They're not a businessman. They're not a homeowner, property owner. They are someone created in the image of God, and trying to teach my friends that are sleeping in the to pass the same judgment on the other people on the other side of the life experience. And it's just, if we could all start seeing each other in our collective beauty, it changes the way. And it's a practice. You have to practice. It's not just a light switch you turn on and all of a sudden you're not labeling and judging people. So I just think that's important, that that I'm challenging my friends that live on the streets to do the exact same thing that I'm challenging us to do. So
yeah, well, keep challenging one-on-one. As I've said many times, I can't, tell you how much I appreciate and just love what you're doing.
Well, thanks, Nick. Thanks for that encouragement. We appreciate you.
Oh yeah, and thanks for being on the show today. If you've liked it, you've been watching, like, comment, share, subscribe. It'd be awesome. And as always, level up.